And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of culturally conscious communication here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. My name is Keidi Owado, aka The Conscious Rasta, and this is the Conscious Rasta Report. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live. We come at you from 9 a.m. Pacific Time. It's 12 noon Eastern Time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 8 p.m. East Africa Time. We get together with you and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives, Pan-African affairs, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Wednesday. It is the 20th of November, the year 2024 in the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the seventh millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. Let me introduce today's program. I think you are going to be wonderfully pleased with the conversation today on LIB Radio. For a growing number of diaspora-born Africans, a first trip to the motherland will be to the West African nation of Ghana. It is from this region that many of our enslaved ancestors were extracted, passing through the doors of no return. My guests today have just made such a sojourn to Ghana and have some exciting observations that they want to share. Let's be clear. Africa is our past. Increasingly, it is our present, and undeniably will be our future. Today, we will discuss the logistics of travel, the reparations priority of reconnecting with the global family, and a spectrum of business, investment, and wealth building strategies with Brothers Nana Kwame Craig, Kwame Reg, and hosted by your brother Kwame Keidi. First of all, let me invite to the stage we have Nana Kwame Akwaba. Welcome to the conversation today, my dear brother. How are you doing?
Yes, sir. Aquaba, Hotep.
All right, and we also have Kwame Reggie. He's connecting with his audio only. Akwaba, how are you today, my dear brother?
Kwaba. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You sound great.
Okay, great.
All
Yes.
right. We are the Kwames in Ghana. Where does the name Kwame come from?
Kwame simply means born Saturday. So, a part of the experience, more often than not, when you travel to Ghana, is to participate in a naming ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to your travel, you'll be asked for your birth date, and your birth date will be researched and it will be determined what day you were born on. So
Mm-hmm.
there are names for both male and female. And the male name for Saturday born is Kwame.
Well, just so happens that three Kwames are engaged in the conversation today. What a beautiful, beautiful point. Traveling to Ghana, your first trip to Ghana, obviously, it was an exciting experience. Let's begin with you, Kwame Reg. Tell us
Yes.
about your first trip to the African continent in 500 words or less.
Okay. Wow. With your permission, since you are my elder, may I please have your permission to speak?
Absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt. You both have our collective permission to speak.
Thank you. First, I would like to give honor to my jingers, to my teachers, to the Honorable Redmond Battles. Prior to his transition, he served as the
Ashe.
President General of the UNIA, and to Dr. Everett Robertson Jr.
Ashe,
Okay.
Ashe.
Right.
Two great ancestors whom we all venerate and respect. May their
Yeah.
names continue to inspire us for generations. Continue.
Thank you. So, man, I always say it was divine intervention because I almost didn't make it to Ghana. I missed my original flight, and it was totally my fault because of the time. So I was supposed to leave Thursday, October 10th at 1:30 in the morning, and I'm thinking that 1:30 is like after midnight on Thursday. So I went out to dinner the day before Wednesday, came home, laid down. I woke up around 12:30 at night, and my phone said Thursday, October 10th, 12:30, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I missed my flight. And so I was very nervous, didn't know what to do, and I couldn't call my brother. So I say it was divine intervention because it was meant for me to be there, and I found a way to get there, and lo and behold, I was able to get. I was able to rebook my flight because I lost the so I was originally flying on Qatar. And
Hmm.
because I was a no-show at the airport, Qatar canceled my entire reservation, and
Ooh.
they refunded me $450, and
Hmm.
I was able to get another flight for like about 1,200 round
Ooh.
trip, and so I flew out of JFK flew to Paris. I had a 3-hour layover, and I finally arrived in Accra, Ghana around 8 p.m. And I was so excited. And so when I first arrived, first I must say this: the airport is very, very clean. One of the cleanest
Hmm.
airports I've ever visited. And my only issue with the airport is the name. And my brother, uh, Nana Kwame Craig, put me onto it. And so I had to do my own research to find out what he's talking about. And the name of the airport is called Kotoka International Airport, and is named after the general, the man that was responsible, who engineered the coup or the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah. So I
That's
was
right.
yeah. So I was like, oh man, they got to do something to change this. But
Hmm.
I'm so grateful to my brother here because when he originally announced the plans for the trip, he said, I think you should go, and I was like, I'll let you know. But I found a way to make it happen, and I had one of the most wonderful experiences, experiencing the culture, the people, the food, and I can't wait to go back. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, and inspiring testimony. Nana Kwame Kukudurfo, excuse me, correct me. My tongue has been out of my own language for too long.
I know
Pronounce your
it's
full
a little
name, please. I know it sounds great coming from your tongue.
Nana Kwame Kukudufu.
Wonderful, Kukudufu.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience. You have 500 words, 501 words. I know you're excited.
I can hardly do the experience justice. We could go on for hours, but what I will do is I'll try to capture as best I can. So my initial experience came about. I'm also a Freemason, so it was proposed in one of our lodge meetings that the brothers should make a sojourn to Ghana, and when the poll was taken, 12 hands went up, and then subsequently, by the time it was time to put your money where your mouth is, that number had dwindled to about four.
Okay.
But I was determined that I was going to take advantage of the opportunity. I've traveled extensively, both personally and in my military experience, and I've vacationed all throughout the Caribbean and different places around the world, but I had never gone to the continent of Africa. And I've studied. We call ourselves amateur historians or Egyptologists. We've
Mm-hmm.
studied with Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. the Honorable Amos Wilson. So we have all this knowledge and information available to us, but we don't act on it. So I decided that it was time to act, and so the process began. Speaking generically, because I'm seeing now that there's a proliferation of tours,
Mm-hmm.
people advertising. trips to Ghana. And I have the person that I traveled with. He's based out of Chicago. His name is Dion Butcher, and he's an incredible brother. He's not. Um, he's he does it more for love than it's a
Mm-hmm.
passion for him to help people reconnect to the continent. So he and I have struck up a friendship consequently, and he guided us through the process initially. So Ghana is still one of the countries that requires a visa to travel.
Mm-hmm.
The visa application can be found online. You can simply Google Ghana embassy. So the application can be downloaded and filled out, and then you submit your application along with the fees. And what I did was I applied for the multi-entry visa, which allows me to travel back and forth for a period of 5 years, literally as much as I want to, or
That's
as
right.
much as I can afford to. So I found that to be extremely economical. I believe the cost was $200 for the multi-entry visa versus a one-time visa. The consideration with the one-time visa is it expires within 90 days. So when the visa is awarded to you or granted, you have to be traveling within that 90-day window to use that visa. So I always recommend, and I find it more beneficial for people to get the multi-entry visa because everyone that's been there, everyone that I know intends to go back.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the requirements, and we discussed it, preliminarily so the only requirement is the yellow fever vaccination. Um, Even though yellow fever, for the most part, has been eradicated, it's still a requirement to travel to Ghana. And we had a conversation about it. My stance on that was that I was not going to let anything stand in the way of me getting home. So
Mm-hmm.
I subjected myself to the vaccine, and so I had that. I satisfied that requirement along with the visa, and then it was just a matter of arranging for the flight. The flight we flew out of JFK Airport. I'm in New Jersey, so we flew nonstop out of JFK to Accra. So when we landed in Accra, we stayed at a hotel in Accra called the Urbano, which was normally it's about a 20-minute drive from the airport. It's very convenient, but now that there's so much attention and so much interest and enthusiasm for visiting Ghana, you're starting to see that now, just like any other metropolitan city, it can hardly accommodate the number of people there in addition to
Mm-hmm.
the vehicular traffic. So a 20-minute trip takes now about 40 to 45 minutes simply
Mm-hmm.
because of the volume of people trying to traverse, and that's even the local Ghanaians, people, tourists, people visiting. It's just an incredible amount of traffic, and the infrastructure is just simply not there that can accommodate that volume. But that's just one thing, and I don't. That's not to dissuade anybody. I mean, traffic is an annoyance. I don't care where you are, whether it be
Mhm.
New York, Philadelphia, or L.A. When you encounter traffic, it's annoying, but it's a fact of life. So one of the interesting things about this trip versus any other that I've been on was that if, say, for example, you go to vacation in the Caribbean and you go to an all inclusive and you go to a resort that has all the amenities right there on the resort, and you end up spending 5 to 7 days and hardly ever venture off of
That's
the
right.
resort. Well, the difference here, and the major difference is, and on this trip, we actually stayed in four different hotels because we moved
Mm-hmm.
about so much. We visited the central region. We went out to Volta region. I don't want to. I know we went up to Elmina. I don't want to confuse the regions. Our
Mm-hmm.
guide, he educated us about the differences. We went up to Kamasi. Oh, that was
Kumasi.
incredible,
Oh yeah.
the trip
Yeah.
up to Kamasi to visit the Ashanti Palace. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
incredible, incredible. So we moved around a lot. We spent 2 days in Accra, then we moved up to Kamasi. Then from Kamasi, we went down to Elmina. We stayed in Elmina, and then we ended up back down in Accra, before our departure because it
Mm-hmm.
was more convenient getting back to the airport, being down in Accra. And all told, we traveled hundreds of miles. We visited so many different. There's so many different. For example, we went to the WEB Du Bois Center. We go to Aburi, uh, up in the hills and the mountains. Beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
The botanical gardens up in Aburi.
That's
Obviously,
right.
we do what are referred to as the castles. We call them the slave dungeons in
That's
both
right.
Cape Coast and Elmina. We go out to Ansimuso to Slave River. Oh man, that's that. So
Yeah, they
this
call that
trip,
the last bath.
the last bath, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So this trip is more than just recreation and relaxation. This is cultural, historical, educational, enriching, and emotional, and extremely emotional. I mean,
Mhm.
you experience the highs and the lows from the time deplane going through the airport and you encounter the staff in the airport. I was shocked. I'm going through customs, and the customs agent, after he reviewed my passport and stamped my passport to allow me through, he said, I turned to walk away, and I heard "Welcome home," and I'm like, well,
Aquaba. Okay.
Mhm.
I said,
Mhm.
what did he just say? Like it didn't
Mm-hmm.
register right away. And over again, I kept hearing "Welcome home," and the people that you interact with, they want to know, is this your first time visiting? And if so, they always you usually depart with "Welcome home."
Mm-hmm.
We're so glad to see you. We're so glad to have you. It's a very welcoming environment. Um, I just want to say that I always mention to people that my spirit is calm. I'm easygoing, and I give respect, and I get a lot of respect in return. I give love. I get love. I have the
Mm-hmm.
best time. I had the absolute best time. I never had a negative interaction. Now, that's not to say that they don't happen. I've witnessed,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't a participant in anything negative, because even if something didn't go, you know, absolutely correct or according to plan, so, is it so egregious or so major that you have to engage in what we call that ugly American
That's
attitude,
right.
you know? And I tell people all the time, and this is the main thing: if you don't remember anything else from this conversation, don't go to Africa expecting America. That's not
That's right. That's
what
a
this is.
good point.
That is not what this is. It's a
Mm-hmm.
totally different experience. The people, the culture, the history, totally different. And you can immerse yourself, and you can feel free, and you can feel at home. That feeling is what, like the commercial says, priceless. You won't find that
Mm-hmm.
anywhere else.
Yeah.
So,
Now you
yes.
did clear customs on 2 different days. Am I correct? When you entered Ghana, you entered Ghana on 2 consecutive days.
No, no, no. Just the one time coming
But
into.
Reg, you came the first
Ye-
day, or you
Yeah,
came the second
No,
day?
I came the first day. I
he
just
came
arrived
later. Yeah,
later
he
later
he
in the day.
arrived
Later
on a
in the day.
later
Well,
flight. Yeah.
Yeah.
the question I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned about the requirement or request for the yellow fever injection. Do you
hmm
recall them asking you for your yellow card when you entered customs
I presented the card with my
with your
passport.
passport?
I don't know if they asked, or if they would have asked if I hadn't. So I,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly can't say if they would have asked if I hadn't presented it, because I carried it. I carried them
Mm-hmm.
together. So
Kwame
because
Reggie, same
Yeah.
question. Did you? What
Yeah.
did they
They didn't ask me for
request it?
mine. They didn't
Yeah.
request it.
Yeah, I have had the wonderful pleasure of traveling to Ghana 4 separate times, and I was never asked for the yellow card at customs. I had a little, I think we had this conversation. I am contraindicated for vaccines, meaning that there's a history of severe reaction to components known to be in vaccines. And so,
Mhm.
as a consequence, I what is called medically contraindicated. And I can never. I've been to Africa, I think, 9 times, and I have only been asked for the yellow card on one occasion, maybe 2 occasions. One time, I presented. I'll just leave it at that. And then the
Mm.
second time I was asked, and then I actually talked my way out of it. I said, "Yellow card, look at my passport. My passport is
Mm.
dated like yesterday. I was struggling, everything I could do to get the visa and the passport to get in here." And she said, "I was just going through." But for those of us, and I'm not going to make this necessarily a central part of our conversation, but for those of
Mm.
us who are, like myself, contraindicated medically against
Mm-hmm.
vaccines, there are exemptions that can be got.
Mm-hmm. And that is very good and relevant information, and it's something that, because when you go on the website for the embassy and you read, it's one of the requirements that are listed.
Hmm.
So it's something that people should be aware of, that if you, like you said, if you have the ability to advocate or indicate that you are uh, was it
Contraindicated.
Okay.
contraindicated,
Mhm.
then I listen. If I could circumvent it, I would. So
Hmm.
Mhm.
that being said,
Absolutely.
like I said, we don't want to go down the rabbit hole too deep
Yeah.
on it.
Well,
Because
the
there's a lot,
reason
lot
it's
of lot of ground
relevant
to cover. Yes.
The reason it's relevant is that in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, there was
Mm-hmm.
this demand for
Mm-hmm.
injections from that. And there, as you brothers know, a huge segment of the population said, hell no, I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
travel requirements, I traveled to Africa 2 times, especially one time right in the heart of that. And during that trip to Uganda, I tested a total of 5 times for the antibodies to the antigens to what was said to be COVID. I knew a lot more about these tests than a lot of people happen to have known. And I had to take 5 separate tests, including at one point, I did get malaria while in
Mm-hmm.
Uganda. And malaria is a very serious disease. It can take your
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yes.
Malaria is a
Yes.
serious disease. And when I went to the local hospital, like the clinic hospital, they came back and said I did not have malaria. They said I
Mm.
had the COVID disease
Oh.
disorder. And that's a whole nother story. I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell that
Right.
story in
Right.
today's
No.
program,
No.
but that was a big
Because
battle.
right, when you mentioned that, and that was something that and I'm glad in this conversation that we have shared knowledge, and that
Hmm.
malaria pills are strongly recommended. When you visit most African countries, but
Yeah.
and so I did that. You can go and get a prescription here in the U.S. I traveled without it. You can walk into almost literally in a convenience store, what we would call a convenience store, and
Hmm.
purchase malaria pills or malaria remedies if you
Hmm.
actually do come down with malaria. So that's something to consider as well. For people traveling, they do recommend that you proactively uh, take the malaria pills to ward off the possibility. But if in fact you don't do that, for example, everything that can be found anywhere else you can find in Africa. You can go in the store, you can find, drinks, snacks, food. Africa is not lacking for
Mhm.
any
Right.
creature comfort or any resource that we have. You can find clothes. Brother Kwame Reggie and I were talking
Mhm.
just yesterday. We were talking about next time I go, I'm not going to pack so heavily. I'm just going to purchase clothing when I arrive. Because you can just go to almost any vendor,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
there's just too much. There's so many options, to purchase clothing or to have clothing, tailor made.
That's
So,
right.
but what I do is when I fly, the airline allowed 2 check bags, so everything that I needed fit in one bag. But I packed an extra bag because the brother that led our group, he said that they love to be able to barter. Like
That's right.
when you go into the marketplace and you're shopping for artifacts, and art. The art is amazing. Everybody knows the art. The clothing, the shea butter, the black soap, all those things, they don't mind bartering. So I pack what I
Hmm.
call a barter bag.
That's right.
And, if you have gently used clothing items, shoes, especially athletic shoes, tennis shoes,
Hmm.
clothing, I always, I'll just say I go to Walmart. And they sell these $12 watches, sport
Mm-hmm.
watches. So I grab like 3 or 4 of those,
That's
you
right.
know. And so my barter bag, he's laughing, right? Because I go to the
Yeah.
marketplace, I spend hardly any money, but
Mm-hmm.
I barter, and fair exchange is no robbery. And I have the greatest time. It's funny because I go in the marketplace, one of the art center, which is near the Nkrumah Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I was walking through and I started hearing my name and I just kept hearing Nana Kwame, because the word is spread.
Man, yeah, word spreads very fast. There come some of those rich Africans from America coming through the
Yeah, yeah,
marketplace.
yeah. They're
Can I
like,
Did you
well,
tell
have
you a
an entourage with you by the
well,
time you were there for an hour or
oh,
so?
yeah,
absolutely, no question, no question. So
yeah,
let me just say
go
quickly,
ahead.
Reg, because I want to touch on this.
Right.
Um, Unfortunately, the exchange rate is very favorable to the U.S. dollar.
Oh,
So you
absolutely.
can trade, you can trade USD, or what we do is we go to what's called the forex and exchange U.S. dollars for Ghanaian CDs. And so the exchange rate when we were there was about 15 point something. Went up as high as 16,
Ow!
which means
Hmm.
for every US dollar you get 16 Ghanaian CDs. So the exchange rate is
Wow.
increasingly favorable, versus the US dollar. So that's an unfortunate, downside of consequence. But
Hey, listen, the last time I was there, they had repurposed the currency. They actually,
mhm.
the CD had gone up so high that they ended up repurposing the national currency, taking two zeros off of the currency. And
Mm.
Yes.
so when I was there last, I think it was 2010, I was there, the currency ratio exchange was about $1 to 1.37 CDs.
Wow. Wow, that is clearly not the case now. So like if you exchange, like I usually exchange in increments of $100. People ask too, like what is a good amount of money to travel with? It depends on your,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you feel comfortable with. But as a general rule of thumb, we usually recommend like $100 a day, depending on the length of your stay. And I usually exchange in $100 increments, and for $100 you get a little over 1,000 some odd CD.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel like a king. You're walking around
Mm.
with like just a ton of money. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the I guess what we would call the average wage income or monthly income is little or nothing compared to what you earn here in the United States. So the people are extremely grateful for what
Mm-hmm.
you see as being, little or nothing. You know, they are very 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 grateful to when we patronize the businesses and the different places. So one of the toughest things, and that we're talking about, the art center, is when you're shopping. Like here in the United States, we go to festivals all the time. Kwanzaa season is coming up, and everywhere I go, I see the same stuff over and over and over. So when I go to Ghana, I'm in the marketplace, and they're trying to show me the exact same. I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want something unique. Show me something different. So I
Mm-hmm.
usually end up in the back of the store somewhere, or underneath something. I'm like, there it is. There's a piece. So what I found is that even if you purchase something that does not fit in your carry on, or that you can't transport back yourself, there's no problem having it shipped to you. We got some great brothers. As a matter of fact, I'm waiting for a shipment right now from
Mm-hmm.
some things I purchased while I was there. I have had absolutely no problems, with the brothers. Sometimes you'll go out, like you go to the bead factory and they'll make something for you that's custom made, and it won't be
Mm-hmm.
ready by the time your excursion is over. If you're there for an hour or hour and a half, and they just take down your hotel information, and by the time you're ready to depart, it's been delivered to your
That's
hotel.
right.
They'll drive to Accra or to wherever you are. They'll drive to Elmina to deliver. So very, very honorable people, very
That's
forthright.
right.
Mhm.
Um, I, I just have the most incredible experience, and I get so much love,
Yeah.
that I, I'm 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 really open and amenable to the ideal of being an expat, um, I just got to pull the trigger on it, but I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
would have a problem, being an expat and living in Ghana, man. Matter of fact, and let me just, I could go on and on, but there's a resort there in Elmina called One Africa that's run by Brother Shabazz and his wife out of Brooklyn, New York. And they're
That's right.
expats for over 20 some odd years.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me just point blank, like, bro, you need to just come on. You know,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, Shabazz is one of the most beautiful people.
Yes, that's my
His
brother.
mama, Sister Imacus, was the
Hmm.
founder with her husband of One Africa. I've had
One
the
Africa,
wonderful
yes.
pleasure of staying there. I think 3 times I've spent
Hmm.
there. In fact, the day that Barack Obama was elected president in the United States, I
Hmm.
can recall being at One Africa,
Wow.
and it was really interesting because the sisters were so enthusiastic about this handsome, young,
Yeah.
mixed race black man.
Right.
While the brothers were
Call it
kind
what
of
it is.
cool, the brothers were
Right.
kind of cool on him. It's like, okay, I understand everybody's excited.
Hmm.
And I recall, and I was distant because I'm a researcher. I always research deep background. And I said, Zbigniew Brzezinski brought this guy along. I'm not hip to him. I'm not that into him. But I can
Right.
recall the morning we woke up that the election had taken place in the United States. What woke us up was the sound of about 8 sisters' voices. La, 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 la.
Oh yeah.
They were going
Uluation.
off.
Oh yeah.
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 And
I
that was a
mean,
joyful day. And
yeah.
I noticed from photographs that I had from later on, and
Hmm.
the photograph, the T-shirt, I didn't do this deliberately because of the election, but the T-shirt I had on that day that Barack Obama was elected had a picture of Khalid Abdul Muhammad on the chest, and it said under it, 100% black man. How appropriate.
That was purely
Yeah.
purely
Yeah.
coincidental.
Yeah.
I
No,
know,
it was
right?
ancestrally directed.
Yeah, there you go. And I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
and that's
I,
that's true. And to that point, very quickly, I had the great fortune and opportunity traveling with the same brother to go to Cuba earlier this year, back in
Hmm.
February, and had the most amazing experience. And you know, say what you want about Obama, my very simply put, he's a politician. I didn't expect any more from him than I would any other politician. Other
That's
than the fact
reasonable.
that he had some claim to black lineage via his father.
And he
But
did have a left hand 3 point jump shot.
in that, whether it's playing the saxophone or shooting the basketball, we whatever. So,
We're
but
susceptible.
yeah, but what he did do was he began to try to normalize the relations between the U.S. and Cuba.
Hmm.
He tried to make efforts in that direction. That was during the time that Raul Castro, Fidel's brother, was the president, and he was moving towards that. And as I spoke to my brothers, the Afro-Cubans, when you go, you got to meet, you got to find us. You'll see some other folks, but look for us when you go to the island. And
Hmm.
they said, they feared the Trump presidency because it's a harsher environment, it's a harsher climate. And I'll just say very quickly, because I know we're not talking about Cuba. I can come back and talk about that. I love that as well. But
Hmm.
the difficulty there was financial transactions because the Cuban financial institutions are not allowed legally to interact with U.S. institutions. So you can't spend your money there the way that you would in other places. So that was a difficulty. But you can do currency exchange, once you arrive. And quite honestly, you can travel freely to Cuba. It also requires a visa, but the visa process for Cuba was incredibly easier than it was for Ghana. For Ghana, you have to send off your passport. I'll just mention
Hmm.
that. You have to send your passport to
That's
the
right.
embassy because they have fixed the visa to your passport. With Cuba, they mailed it to you.
Yeah.
And you fill it
Yeah.
out yourself. And it
Well,
was $80.
increasingly because of digital economy, making it
Yes.
easier to get these visas, and many African countries do not demand a visa from U.S.
Hmm.
citizens.
Hmm.
It's a touchy situation because the
It
U.S.
is.
uses the visa process and travel process as kind of a weapon of
They do.
domination.
They do.
and sanctions, etc. I want
Hmm.
to, if you don't mind, Brother Reggie,
Yeah.
you pushed up a series of Brother Kwame Reg,
Hmm.
you pushed up a series of images that you brothers had gotten from the trip. And if you don't mind, can I push these images up on the screen and
Yeah.
you can just give us a little visual tour of what you shared?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to add these to the stage. Let me know if you can see the image right there of this handsome looking brother. Look like he's getting ready to throw a rock at somebody.
That's at the Cape Coast.
Hmm.
Is that right? Yeah.
This is
No,
it,
that
Elmina or the fort?
no, this this
Is
this is
that Cape?
actually no, brother. That was actually at Elmina
That's at
when
Hmm.
Elmina.
that occurred.
Okay.
What happened is that's literally one of the cannon shot, but that's also what they would use. The chain is no longer tethered to it, but it was
Hmm.
used as a punishment for the captives. I won't say
Hmm.
the enslaved, but the Africans who had been captured. If they were disobedient, they were punished by being chained to that. What happened was the guide asked if one of us wanted to try to lift it, and what you see is the end result, but you don't see the strain that
Hmm.
I had, to this force I had to exert to be able to lift that. It was easily 40 to 45 pounds, just that
Hmm.
one shot. So that's out literally out in the courtyard of one of the dungeons at Elmina, and he was demonstrating to us what would happen to there were so many atrocities visited on the African on our ancestors, especially those who refused to cooperate or to acquiesce to
Hmm.
what was happening to them, and that was one of the things. So that was me, you know uh trying to lift that, and I lifted it, and the thought in my mind was, someone was shackled to that, which would render you immobile, and
And
you
they
would
were
be
in the hot sun. The
yes,
Ghanaian
yes,
summer sun
you
would
would
be
you would be
quite
left
torturous.
for hours without
Hmm.
food, without water. It was a punishment. So
Yeah.
that's what that is.
All right. Continue. A people without a knowledge of their history is like a tree with no roots, to quote from Marcus Garvey.
Oh man,
Yeah.
this is a favorite shot in context. We went to the school, to Bantu school in Elmina, and this is school that we visit, and we went there and we took some supplies, and we donated supplies to the school. We've essentially adopted the school, and we're going
Hmm.
to do everything that we can to help them fulfill their needs. But this particular young lady that I'm with, she was like the valedictorian. She
Hmm.
welcomed us, and she spoke so beautifully. I had to capture the image. I asked her if I could take a picture with her, because she was so eloquent, so well spoken, and just a
Hmm.
beautiful spirit. We love the kids. You'll see some other photos from that visit, from that tour at the school. But the schools that in Elmina are nothing like the schoolhouses here in the United States. In the United States, I hear, there's a big thing in Philadelphia right now where they're complaining about not having air conditioning, in the classrooms. These are classrooms that some of them have no doors or walls.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so,
And they
if you want to talk about hardships, man.
Hmm.
and they have to contend with the element if it rains. The
That's right.
leaky
Yeah.
roof.
That's right. And of course, if you look at the pavement, and sometimes, the elements can be rather harsh and it can get muddy in some of these locations. Nonetheless, despite the physical, uh, let's say, deprivations of the facilities, you talked about the brilliance that the students show because they have such a passion, a cultural
Oh,
passion
oh,
for education.
absolutely. And so, one thing that in this photo, which I didn't really, it wasn't intentional. I just, because she was going back to her classroom, and I just stopped her, like, "Hey, can I get a picture with you?" And you see, directly behind me, off to the right, is the water bladder, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
in Ghana, in Accra, in and around everywhere in Ghana that I've been, you have to have a water bladder to store potable water.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the situation. They don't have a water authority that pumps water directly to your home, or a sewage authority. They don't
Or
have that. So
boreholes, right?
exactly, exactly. So that's the water bladder. And but what's of particular note is it says it was donated, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's a relatively new water bladder that was donated. So even in the pictures, you'll see other pictures in the classroom with the desks. Literally everything is donated. So what we're doing is we're doing some fundraising. We want to try
Mm-hmm.
to help them. We just received a letter from the headmaster requesting some particular items. So we're going to be embarking on a fundraising effort just to do as much as we possibly can, like as much as
That's
we
right.
possibly can. And I'll just tell
Every
a really,
chance we can.
really quick story because I know my daughter is going to watch this at some point. Um, no, because the
Yeah.
trip was special for me because I was able to take the family, my son and my daughter, and you'll see her in the photos later on. But as
Mm-hmm.
we were leaving, she comes to me and she says, "Dad," she says, I want to feed the kids."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Feed the kids? What are you talking about?" She said, "I want to make sure they all have lunch." I said, "Ashley, did you hear? He said they have 700 students." I said, "What are you saying to me right now? Like, are you
Mm-hmm.
trying to provide lunch for 700 students?" And she said, "Well, at least the ones that don't have lunch." I said, "Well, Ashley, here's the situation." I said, "They didn't know we were coming today. Like
Mm-hmm.
this wasn't planned. The students didn't know, so they had already whatever plans they have for lunch, they've already made. The ones that
Mm-hmm.
brought their lunch or intend to purchase their lunch, I said they already have some sort of ideal of what they're going to do for lunch. But she was so touched, and she just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do. I mean, she probably would have adopted like the entire school.
That's
But
right.
that's
That's
just
right.
her spirit and what she witnessed and what she saw. She just wanted to make sure that the kids were taken care of, and
That's right.
that was the highlight of her trip, man. And I was
That's
so,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. Giving to these schools, I traveled to the motherland, to Ghana specifically, with Africa for the Africans.org, and every
Mm,
trip we would always tell everybody reserve a part of your luggage for donations to the school.
mm,
We would donate books and toys depending on the age of the children,
mhm,
as
mhm,
well as make cash donations to the
mhm,
schoolmasters. And on my last trip to Ghana, and I've done this multiple times, almost on every trip to Africa, I donated a laptop computer to the Green Gate Academy in Yeri, Kenya.
It's
And they're
so
so very
Hey,
amazing you
grateful.
say that because that's what we did.
yeah.
So we donated 2 Chromebooks. So we asked the headmaster to identify the top male student and the top female student. Because if I had asked them for the top students, they probably would have been both female. And
Hmm.
I don't want to, but I don't want the young men to go away discouraged.
That's
I
right. That's
want to
right.
be encouraging to everybody. So
That's
he
right.
he identified the students, so we gave something to all the children, but and especially that's my daughter
Mm-hmm.
and
And in
her
fact,
college.
what is that in their hands you're
That's
donating
the
right now?
Chromebook.
Yeah.
That's the
Hmm.
Chromebook. And the young lady in the uniform is the top female student. So that's her, awarding her. So and then it was interesting because I had to have a conversation beforehand with our guide on the ground over there, Patrick. I
Hmm.
said, Patrick, is this going to be an issue as far as like Wi-Fi or internet? And he reached out, and the headmaster assured him. He said, no, they have ability to access, Wi-Fi because with a Chromebook, everything is
Hmm.
internet based. So I said,
Yeah.
okay, because I don't want there to be any issues, with them being able to use this, So he assured us that it would be put to good use. So oh man, we were so excited, and
Awesome.
it was so well received. And if I had more, I would do more. It's
Well,
that simple.
we can always plan on having more for the next trip for those who haven't been represented. And two handsome Kwame brothers. Who's the young
Yes,
man you're with?
yes. That's the top male student, and in the blue shirt is my son Anthony, and this brother Kwame Reg,
Hmm.
presenting the Chromebook to the top male student.
Okay,
So
I had mistaken you for your son. He is a
Yeah.
no, no,
spitting
no.
image, huh?
That was that's Anthony, and
Yeah.
oh man, you can't, like I said, it was priceless. You
Mhm.
man, they just, like I said, that was the highlight of the trip.
And one of
Interacting.
the things I noticed when we would be gifting our
Mm,
hosts and their families and things when we would travel to Africa,
Hmm.
When we would, I recall my first trip, there was a group of about 8 children, and I was staying at the compound. Over here, we have apartment complexes, but over in Ghana, they have family compounds where not only
Hmm.
the family that lives in the local region would occupy the entire structure, but those traveling from the remote regions, from the village coming into the city, this is where you will be staying, even if you have to
Hmm.
lay a pallet down in the
Yes.
yard outside the door. And that's
Yes.
just such a beautiful vibe. But when we would give a gift to the children, if you turn around 3 times and you look, the first child you gave it to, the gift would be in the hands of the next child. And it was
Yes.
not a gift to an individual child. They didn't grab it and try and run away in the corner. No, it was a gift to them all. And one would hold it for a few seconds or a minute
Hmm.
and then let the
And
next child
share.
hold it.
Yeah.
That's something cultural that we
Hmm.
have to relearn and remember.
Yes, we do. I couldn't
Absolutely.
agree more. There's so
Yeah.
much that we need to, that's, literally Sankofa. We need to embrace our origin. I think that's what's going to save us, quite honestly, is if
Mm-hmm.
we abandon, some of the things that have been forced on us, and get back to, the things that we know uh, instinctively and naturally to
Mm-hmm.
do. I think that's what's going to save us. And this is,
Now here.
yeah. That's the students. They bought them out in groups or sections by grades, and we distributed books and supplies and pens and things that we had purchased. So we made sure every student got something um, during
Mm-hmm.
that visit. So that's
Now I'm
Nana
sure.
Kwame Reg. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure that our
I had a
listeners,
blast.
our viewers right now viewing the screen, will appreciate the fact that the girls, the school girls, do not wear weaves, do not wear braids, synthetic hair, braids, and synthetic hair.
No, no, not at all. And you know, um, people have a tendency to see the natural state of being and not recognize it anymore, because what you see too often is unnatural, and we embrace things that are unnatural. And but so when you see it, it takes you aback, but then you have to see the beauty and the human being, or in people just being who they are. We talk about poverty and different things, and I like to tell people that I grew up um, in a row home in Trenton, and I was poor, but I didn't know I was poor because everybody around me was poor. You see what I'm saying? So we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, they are living, and they're
That's
living
right.
in a circumstance and in an environment. Some of them don't know they're poor unless you show up and tell them, and they say, "Well, what does that mean? What are you saying? I have everything I need. What do you mean I'm poor?" You
That's right.
understand?
And they are quick to laugh, quick to smile,
Hmm.
and quick to share the joys of living that they have
Oh,
been blessed
absolutely.
with. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let's
And
take a. Oh,
well,
continue.
just really quick, one of the other plus to Ghana is that it's a primarily English speaking, like almost even the children in the school. So there's no communication barrier. You can
Mm-hmm.
speak freely and talk to the kids, and they can talk, and you can understand them, and they'll understand you. So that's a plus, even though we're not speaking native tongue, and they do have their native dialects that they speak as well, but there's no communication barrier.
Mm-hmm. This book, can
Nana,
you give us
Nana
an
Kwame Reg?
insight to acquiring this book, Kwame Reg?
Yeah, so this book was recommended by by a guide at the at Cape Coast, at the
Mm-hmm.
Cape Coast Dungeon. Yeah, he highly recommended this book right here, and it was his. I forget the name of the brother, but he said it was his teacher who wrote the book, and it gives a very great history um, on slavery. It gives the shows the difference between uh, the indentured and the and chattel slavery. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an excellent, it's a great resource. I highly recommend this book right here as a primer if someone's looking to find out more information about the indigenous slavery in Ghana.
Now, when they're talking about indigenous slavery, I'm presuming that the word indigenous means that Africans enslaving other Africans?
So, well, um, in Africa, it was just groups who had conflicts with each other. It wasn't
That's right.
necessarily slavery. So one group may not have liked another group because of maybe eyebrows or the shoes you were wearing or whatever. But the aim, what happened was in these conflicts, the aim was when you capture another person, the aim was not to kill, just capture. And also when you captured another person, another African, that that African didn't lose his rights. He retained whatever rights he had. And in certain situations, the captured person um, was allowed to move up in the ranks of that society.
That's
So the
right.
captured person may eventually become the king or the priest of that of the village that captured him.
Well,
So
yeah, I think it was expressed. I believe it was Dr. Clark that said that the difference between uh, their enslavement and what was going on between the tribes is that they didn't force you to relinquish your culture or
mhm,
your identity per se versus a European enslavement where your identity was essentially erased. Your
erase it.
culture was abandoned, and so we know the travesty that was visited on us. So there was a distinction there. There's no argument. I mean, we can put to rest the whole issue of whether Africans participated in the slave trade. Quite honestly, everybody participated. It was the global economy at
Mhm,
one time. Buying and
Mm-hmm.
selling Africans enriched entire nations: Portugal, Belgium, Brazil, England, Spain. You name it. We got beef with everybody on the planet, just about.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
all enriched themselves.
Mhm,
The Catholic Church. There's a shameful history, and so we can put. But there, I think that I heard it said that the African initially, when they sold other Africans into captivity, they didn't imagine the atrocities that would be visited on them. They thought it would be the same as capturing another warrior from a tribe in warfare, where he was brought back to a village and made to be part of that village. And that's what they talk about, the indentured part, where they would be working eventually with the goal in mind that they could eventually attain rights as part of that tribe, as part of that village, to own land, to have a family, to engage in the customs of the tribe to which they had now been, made a part of, without
Mm-hmm.
having to abandon, what they knew natively.
it-
All right.
Bobby, can I
Yes,
add on to that before you
please do.
we speak about the next picture? Um, During this presidential election, Vice President Kamala Harris was asked about reparations, and I believe she mentioned something to the effect that we need to study it, right? We need to study reparations. She said we're not just going to write a check; we just need to study it some more. So I was a little taken back by that
Yeah,
because
I
at
agree.
at the Cape Coast dungeon, not only did we pick up this book, but we picked up another book, and it's called the Cape Coast Castle and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Now, inside that book, there's a photograph of President Barack Obama doing the tour along with his family at the Cape Coast Dungeon. And so, as I'm turning the pages through this book, I see another familiar picture, which was Vice President Kamala Harris. So when she said the thing about reparations, I'm like, wait a minute, you were at the Cape Coast dungeon. You viewed the physical evidence right there. What more evidence do you need? What study do you actually need? You were there at the place of where the crime happened at. But that's all,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I wanted to say
Yeah.
about that. And then we all know about the Constitution, where you were considered three-fifths of a human being.
Well, not
Heck,
her, but
yeah,
us.
but
Not
yeah,
her.
us, yeah, heck, we can make a case that we don't have to pay, we shouldn't have to pay taxes because we didn't receive anything for our free labor for 300 years.
Yeah.
So,
When
but
it
that's
comes,
another topic at another time.
no,
But yeah,
when
I
it
just wanted to
comes,
add that.
yeah, when it comes to this topic of reparations, I consider the in travel engagement of Africans from the diaspora returning to the mother continent as one of the critical 9 components of reparations that needs to be dealt with. And this did not require the Democrats or the Republicans, Congress, Senate, or an executive order. It just required for us to have a strong enough passion and desire to use already accessible resources to go and make that connection. And as it was not only the heart to heart cultural connection that you made, but you also started a process that you seem to have pledged to commit of wealth transfer, technology transfer.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, since we're
That's
here,
reparations.
we, or I think, yeah, Reg, you did go to the reparations conference. We attended the reparations conferences in DC, at the Encobra
Mm-hmm.
organization
That's like
would
20
annually
years
host
ago.
a conference. Yeah, but and to my point, the Honorable John Conyers mentioned that every year during every legislative session, he would introduce a House bill to study the issue of reparations, and every year that bill would die in committee. It was never brought to
That
the
was
floor
HB
for a vote.
40. Mm-hmm.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
20,
So
23 years in a row, it
yes,
was dismissed. My question
yes,
arose, if you do it 24 times, is it going to get a better outcome than the first 23 times? Insanity is doing the same thing over and
which
over
is
again
which
and
is why
expecting different
it's so
results.
amusing to hear that Vice President Harris would say we need to study the question. It's like you can't even get a vote to establish a commission to study the question, and
And it
that's
was
a
just
fact.
a commission to study. Had nothing to do
Just
with
to study.
reparations.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
So
right. So
that's
I
that's
get
the
a little
footnote.
upset when I hear
But
about these politicians and HB 40. It kind of grinds on my nerves.
it
I
it
wrote a
does.
book
It does.
called The Repairing, how
Hmm.
we can do reparations. We had this conversation, and
Yes.
at this point, I give honor and praise to the name of the Honorable Ken Bridges, our martyred ancestor, who
Mm.
introduced me and no small number of others to the idea of let's just focus on self reparation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The most eloquent and passionate argument that I read on the subject was Randall Robinson's The Debt. And
The Debt.
after
Excellent
he
book.
wrote that, I said, well, what else needs to be said?
That's right. Ray Winbush wrote a great book on it. My book, The
Absolutely.
Repairing.
Yes.
Reparations has been studied since
It
1820.
certainly has.
Mhm.
All that's lacking is will and action. That
Well,
is,
and the U.S. doesn't have enough money. I
that's true. Well,
calculated in my book the cost of unpaid labor of
hmm
as many as 13.5 million Africans enslaved for nearly all of their life, average life expectancy of 30 years, and what
mm,
would be a comparable modern day wage of enslaving someone, putting someone in a cage that's been illegally convicted of a crime. They're
hmm
compensating them for an average of about $30,000 per year. So according to my calculations, 13.5 million people at a lifetime of $900,000 enslaved for life, unpaid interest for 156 years
hmm
on a debt of 900,000 came to 1.82 billion dollars per human being. Therefore,
hmm
according to my calculations, I lay the whole formula out.
hmm
Reparations due just for unpaid labor to the year 2018. It was 57.3 trillion dollars. No, it wasn't. It was 24.7 trillion dollars.
hmm Oh, easily, easily. But what gets lost in that discourse is the fact that people were forced to work from can't see in the morning till can't see at night. It wasn't a
So there would have
conventional
been
8-hour
overtime
workday.
wages. It would have
They
been
they
overtime.
exactly. There was no weekends off and all this. The labor conditions themselves were abhorrent and wouldn't even be allowed. They're illegal today. And
Well,
these
and
are the
so you're compensating not only for labor, but also for
mhm.
punishment for crimes against individuals.
It's insurmountable. And that's why I say, unfortunately, the United States will never arrive at that point. People focus on the monetary aspect, but in my opinion, and Randall Robinson, and I'm sure you laid out the argument that we can be compensated in other ways. You can forgive home mortgages, student loan debts. You can make college, secondary education free. For anybody claiming to be a descendant of those African slaves. There's so many other things, land. There's so many other things that could be done. You know,
Hmm.
outside of writing a check, because if we keep demanding a check, that check's never going to be written. And I'm here to say it.
Well,
And
I will never say that that check will not be written, but it won't be the check that people
that they
imagine.
deserve. Correct.
Only
Correct.
checks that will be written as America is only going to write a check when America answers the question, what's in it for me? If
Mm,
Africans in America set up a plan to
hmm
dominate the global trade in African continental resources, that we are the intermediary for anybody wanting any resources from Africa, if we could pull that off, they'll be writing us reparations checks every hour.
And that is true. That
So
is
let's
true.
go forward. Let's
Yes.
talk. Let's go through the rest of these pictures here. This one we've had up for a second. Explain what we're looking at.
Okay. So the backdrop to this right here, about maybe 2 months ago, um, Dr. Breda Thetford of iStream, she's the executive director of iStream New Jersey, which is located in Burlington, New Jersey. She reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to serve um, as the international judge for a STEM program for Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
and so she provided me with the different committees that I can serve on. So the two committees, so I agreed. The two committees that I served on was digital technology. Since I have a background in technology, I've been involved in IT, information technology, for well over 25 years. And and the other committee was food sustainability. And I had an interest in that particular area because I recently got involved in gardening about 2 3 years ago. So long story short, she found out that I was so this the STEM Novation 2024. This is Ghana's STEM program. This is the finals. The finals was scheduled to take place in September, but it was
Mm-hmm.
postponed. And so when she found out that I was going to Ghana around the same time, that I was going to be in Ghana around the time that they were going to have the finals, she was like, "Oh, can you present an award to one of to one of the high schools?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Mm-hmm.
So remember in the beginning when you asked me the question in the beginning, I missed my flight. So now I was
Mm-hmm.
dealing with two things. I'm like, wow, I'm going to miss my whole vacation with brother Kwame, and I'm supposed to present an award at the STEM Novation. So, but anyway, everything came into being. But I reached out to my brother Kwame. I said, hey, I have an opportunity to present an award at Ghana STEM Novation, and I gave him the date, and I knew that we were going to be traveling throughout Ghana. And I gave him the actual date. I said, "Can you arrange for transportation?" So um, the day before the event, we were in Kamasi. Is that correct? We was in, so which is in the STEM Novation was in Accra. So that's like a 4 hour commute. My taxi driver picked me up about 5 o'clock in the morning. I arrived at the STEM Novation event around 10:30, and it was over with at 5 o'clock. So my driver stayed the entire time. And the event
Mm-hmm.
took place, so I can get it right. The event took place at the University of Professional Studies. And
Mm-hmm.
so there I was allowed time to present an award. But I just want to mention my brother Ted, because he helped me with my talking points. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an excellent time in presenting the award to one of the high schools. And as Brother Kwame always remind me, he says necessity is the mother of invention
I say.
inventions. And so you can see the different inventions that was created based on an actual need. And you know, from you brothers going to Ghana, you can see that there's so many different needs, and when especially when you
Mm-hmm.
go out in the rural areas. So the one of the things that I liked about the event is that the top four contestants, they were allowed to pitch their project in front of a group of investors, and
Mm-hmm.
the winner of the STEM Novation 2024 was a high school. These guys right here. So they invented this is a dialysis machine. So they created
Mm-hmm.
a solar powered dialysis machine. So
Wow.
as you know, in some of the rural areas in Ghana, one of the things that they don't have a lack is power, electrical power. So yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
these guys were the winners. But I got a chance to just go around to the different booths and to talk to the students. So I had a great time. But one of the things that I mentioned in my talking points was I mentioned um, three great political giants from Ghana, which is Casey Hayford. Casey Hayford was the one who drew up the petitions to free Ya Asantewaa,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was also the Jinga or master teacher to Joseph P. Danquah, and Joseph P. Danquah was the teacher of Kwame Nkrumah. You remember when
That's
Kwame
right.
Nkrumah went to school, Joseph P. Danquah was the one that would send him money to make sure that he was all right. And I'm gonna probably end on this point, but I asked the audience, do they know anything about? I asked them. I said, "What does AI stand for?" And everyone said, "Artificial intelligence." And I said, "No." I said, "AI stands for ancestral intelligence." I
There
said,
you go.
"Africa has what the world wants but can't have." That's something that Dr. Clark used to say all the time, and my brother Ted constantly reminds us by saying that particular statement, particular quote. So I said there's nothing artificial about your intelligence. I said
Mm-hmm.
I said allow I said the ancestors are within you. You are the ancestors. You know, so that's what AI stands for me, ancestral intelligence.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, let me see what else. Yeah, yep.
All right.
Uh,
Speaking of ancestral intelligence.
hey, before we move on, Baba Keidi, I just want to acknowledge two of our ancestors, right quick, while it's on my spirit, to the illustrious Emery D. Forsett and to my brother James R. Glass Jr. We refer to him as Brother Haru. He was instrumental in starting a program years ago, along with his brother, called the Communiversity. And the
Mm-hmm.
concept of Communiversity was to bring a university type education to the community at a fraction of the cost. And so this brother right here, he used to not only pay for the speakers, but he used to pay for the lodging and for the meals. And Dr. Layola Africa, whenever he was maybe in the Philadelphia area, New Jersey, and New York, he used to always stay at his parents' house. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want to recognize those two great ancestors, and to my brothers Gino, who's brother Kwame's brother, and to my brother Ted. Go ahead.
Ashe.
Yes, sir.
Ashe.
Yeah.
All right. What are we looking at? And we're going to step up our
Yeah.
pace. We got a few more
Yeah.
photographs and a
Yeah.
few more talking points.
Now this is just act,
Mhm.
uh, at the naming ceremony. This was at the conclusion of the naming ceremony, and this is just Nana Kwame Kukudufru at home,
Mm-hmm.
celebrating with his family in the village of Iture, Elmina, and just life is good.
Ashe. Life is good. We continue.
So that right there is the Mahaya Palace. This is the seat of the Asantehene, the monarch of the Ashanti Kingdom, as well as
Mm-hmm.
his official residence. So we got a chance to tour the Palace Museum,
Hmm.
which served as the private place for where the kings resided at, the past kings.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
what?
I love the Adinkra symbol there on the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, really quickly,
Hmm.
people, when this is about, like he says, about a, depending on traffic, it may be take you up to about 4 hours outside of Accra,
Yeah.
which was another. No, that's a fascinating part of the journey, as well as the way we move about. But if you go, you have to go to Kumasi region. The Ashanti kingdom is there, and the Ashanti king is still there, and so. The way that the system works there, the chiefs of the different regions still have a lot of say in how the country is run. The president
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes will acquiesce. And one of the things that was interesting to note is, for what it's worth, when was it King Charles was coronated? I think the coronation, they
Hmm.
invited the Ashanti king, but not the Ghanaian president.
President.
And so they have the
Mm.
picture there of the Ashanti king
Hmm.
being welcomed at the coronation in England of the king, King Charles. That's how powerful the ruler of the Ashanti region is. And so when you visit the museum, you get to hear and see and witness that rich history,
Hmm.
and the incredible story of Yaa Asantewaa. But also, you get to see, one of the things that were disturbing to me was that they have on display there some of the gold artifacts that were returned from the Museum of London in Great Britain, that were
Hmm.
stolen from Ghana, from the Ashanti region, and over the course of decades have now been loaned back to. And so the guy was telling us, he said, "Yeah, they're on loan to us for a period of 3 years." I said, "What
Oh
do you
my
mean on
God.
loan?" I said, "I hope you don't intend to return this." Like, what are you saying? It just diminished
Mm-hmm.
our sensibilities. And he was taken aback. He was like, "I don't know what to say." So that it's very interesting. So the bottom
Yeah.
line, the takeaway here is that, when you go and you go to Ghana, when you come into the airport, there was one group there. There was one large group of about 84 people. I don't know how they move about. Um, but if you get a chance to get up to Kumasi, you certainly want to go visit the museum. This picture here was taken on the plateau. We were in the Shy Hills Reserve, looking out over the trails. And what is interesting about this is, I want to say, if I had to guess, maybe 40 kilometers outside of Accra. But this is how far into the hinterland that they would go to bring the captives. And part of that journey of them down to the coast, to the dungeons, people don't realize that journey sometimes took months to march the captives. I mean, on foot, from where they
Mm-hmm.
were captured down to the dungeons, and then they were held there sometimes for months while they were waiting to comprise a load. Because the slave ships held approximately 300 individuals. So if they were capturing them in groups of 20 to 30 or even 50, they had to wait until they had enough to fill the hold of a ship. So in the Shy Hills Reserve, there's caves, and the caves are where some tribes hid out to avoid being captured. And one of the proudest moment, I think it was the Kordobu tribe. I have to look it up, but there's a plaque there that commemorates the tribe that would ambush the slave trading caravans that would come
Mm-hmm.
through this area, and they would free the captives. So when I read that, when I heard that history, I was so proud, to know, that there was resistance. There was always resistance.
That's
Some
right.
of it
That's true.
successful, some of it unsuccessful, but there was always resistance. It wasn't acquiescence. We weren't docile and complacent. We fought. We fought. And so this is me and the brother. And the brother there, that's Nana. To my right is Nana Kwame Reg, and then me, and then that's brother Dion. That's brother Dion Butcher. He's the brother out of Chicago that put together the trip for us, and then
Hmm.
he's flanked on the end by my son Anthony.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
One
Awesome.
one thing I would like to add is that um, the on top of the rocks, the tour guide explained to us when a young lady gets a menstrual cycle, she was then ushered up into the hills and
Yeah, they
to
did
live
rites of
among, yeah,
passage
rites of
in
passage,
the
right,
caves.
in
Yeah,
the caves,
and
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they
yeah,
still
yeah.
have, they've preserved that area. You can still see where those rituals and ceremonies took place,
Hmm.
and they're still done, ceremonially.
Ceremony,
Not.
right.
But I just want to say, my brother Dion is on. I see him in the chat. I just want to say, he shouted us out.
What's
That's
up,
my brother.
Dion?
I
Mm-hmm.
love.
Mhm.
My brother Dion, man, that's my brother from another mother.
All
So
right, and there is a
we
chat,
doing
a
the
question in the chat from Cheryl asks, can you ask Brother
yeah.
Reggie, Kwame Reggie, do you have a Ghanaian name?
Yes, I am Kwame Ajiman.
Hmm.
Okay.
That's my name. Yeah,
Hmm.
Ajiman, what does that stand for?
Ajiman, warrior, savior.
Hmm.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations. A
Thank you.
beautiful,
Yeah,
a powerful African name as opposed to, I was named, my parents gave me a birth certificate name, or I call it the taxpayer name of a Scottish man. Well, I
mm.
don't like paying
Hmm.
taxes, and so I don't call myself by a Scottish name.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Continuing, this is,
Oh, that's the King's
That's
Palace.
that's the gate
okay,
Yeah,
outside of
yeah.
the palace. There's a
of the
portion
Ashanti
of
Palace
the
in
palace
Kumasi.
that
Mhm.
is inaccessible to the public because it's still it's like the White House. It's still
Hmm.
functional as a
Yeah,
palace.
one
So
thing I would
part of it,
note,
the old palace, the museum is in the old palace. Yeah,
mhm. One thing I would note about the Ashanti Kingdom, it is so powerful that in the aftermath
it
of
is.
3 coups d'etats that took place in the alliance, the area known as the Alliance of Sahel States, the 3 coups of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, when the Niger coup d'etat happened, ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States bloc, threatened to
Mm.
attack Niger toward the restoration of the deposed um, and despised leader of Niger.
Mm.
And while ECOWAS was making this military threat against 3 other African nations from the ECOWAS region, it was the Ashanti king, among others, of the royal families in that region that said, no, you will not use war against our own African brothers, our own African family. And that's, I think, a very good instance of the power of the various kingdoms, the thrones, and their influence over modern society. And as we spoke about, also 3 of these Sahel states have now formed as a response to that threat of attack, have formed a confederation, an alliance that makes this, beginning on July 6, 2024, Africa's newest nation called the Confederation of Sahel States. Geographically, it's now Africa's largest nation.
Mm.
The power
Outstanding.
of the kingdoms.
Outstanding. Yes, it is.
So this, so this my little brother Diallo Sumbri. He was one of the main. He served on the year of return committee.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the main ones pushing for the year of return. He is now. He was the first African American to serve as the ambassador of tourism for Ghana. So
Mm-hmm.
so one, he found out we were in Ghana and he pulled up on us at we were at Buka restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah. So he actually extended an invitation for us to come to his village, and but our schedule was kind of tight. But I told him the next time we're in Ghana, we'll definitely come and spend more time with him. So yeah, so that's Diallo Sumbri, but his mother uh, played a huge role not only in my life, but in terms of Nani Kwame's life as well. His mother's name is Mama McKinney, and she was the one that taught me about Mother Africa. That taught me that we have an ancestral homeland to go home to. So the one of the first uh, tapes that she gave me was by Dr. Frances Cress Wilson.
Oh
Praise be
man,
to her
peace
eternal
and
name.
blessings to Mama Kenny,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
We can't show her
and
enough love. She's down in
and
Mm-hmm.
D.C.
down in DC. Yes.
Associated
Yep.
with
Mhm.
what is Appeal. The
Uphill.
organization is
Mm-hmm.
call Appeal in
Would
D.C.
you
So if you're in
Mm-hmm.
the
you
D.C.
spoke at
area,
Uphill, brother
Mm-hmm.
no,
Keidi. You
Ted.
spoke at
Oh,
Uphill.
oh, he did. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I
Mm-hmm.
love the appeal organization of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
everything they stand for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
Sandy.
can't
So if
wait
you're
to
in the
speak
D.C.
there
area,
again.
show
Let's turn
Mama
a few
Kenny
more
some
pages.
love.
We're going to have to
Yes.
begin to wrap
So
things up. The
Yeah.
previous image we were looking at right here.
this okay. So this is you have to in the crowd. They finally got it together and they built this incredible memorial park to honor uh, Kwame Nkrumah. And
I
this is
say.
the statue, always forward, never back. This is the statue in the memorial. That next shot is actually the memorial where that was designed. The what was explained to us is that it looks like the hilt or the handle of a sword, and a
Mm-hmm.
sword raised up means war, but a sword pointed down means peace. So this is to
Mm-hmm.
symbolize a sword that is literally buried to the hilt in the ground, and symbolizing eternal and lasting peace. And in this structure, Kwame Nkrumah is actually entombed. He was actually buried 3 times, and his remains were exhumed and moved. He was taken out to his tribal or as ancestral birthplace, and then he was brought back and finally entombed along with his wife, his Egyptian wife. I believe her name was Farida, if I'm not mistaken. But both of them are entombed in this structure. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, beautiful place that honors the legacy of Dr. Nkrumah. And I'll just say that, when you go, you
I
have to
say.
visit this. This is a place that you could just drop me off and leave me there. I could spend hours and hours, just studying, understanding. They have a lot of the memorabilia, a lot of the videos of his speeches, a lot of his works are preserved here. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just an incredible, incredible place to visit. So I highly recommend it. It's in the central part of Accra. When you're in Accra, it's central near the stadium
Mm-hmm.
or the ceremonial grounds, like
That's
right
right. And
across
the
the street.
museum attached to
Hmm.
this is wonderful place to do your
It
research.
is.
And one of the outstanding things I remember was it was surrounded by all these beautiful fountains, and we can see
Yes,
evidence
yes,
of that
yes.
here.
Oh, the fountains with the horn blow. Oh, it's beautiful. You just have to, and that was we were there, in the evening at night, so it was lit up. It was an incredible place. So I know we have to end at some point, but I just wanted to share with people that so my name Nana, the first part of my name simply means someone who is part of the royal lineage. So the title Nana is given to someone who is part of the royal family, and Kwame,
Mm-hmm.
again, born Saturday. And then the last part of my name, Kukudufru, means a bold and courageous person who is able to withstand any adversity. Now, to get to this stage of my life and finally have a name that has meaning, it was just indescribable. The feeling was indescribable. The emotion was indescribable. Like you said, we bear European names that literally ring hollow. They don't mean anything. They don't even your spirit. It doesn't even appeal to your spirit. But when I'm
Mm-hmm.
home and I hear Nana Kwame, and man, it's just joy. It's joy,
Yeah,
man.
it feels joyful. Let's see if we can get through a few more talking points.
Mm,
We have about
mhm.
another
Sure,
10 minutes before we wrap.
sure.
You had talked about the naming ceremony, very, very important. During our preliminary conversation, the subject came up of the distinction between DNA ancestry testing versus maternal and paternal lineage, and the perception that we can take a DNA test and it will tell us where we're from Africa. Do you recall the conversation we had there?
Oh, absolutely. So it was prefaced by what people. So we go to Ghana and we go to the village, and the village embraces you. And there's a number of different tour operations, and they take you to different places, and you can go to any number of villages and have a naming ceremony. So the critics back here in the U.S., they say, "Well, how do you know that's where you're from?" And my response to them was, "Well, how do you know I'm not?" And then you
Mm-hmm.
elaborated to make that distinction between the DNA and when you start talking about I don't want to paraphrase, I don't want to mess it up, but you can
I just
elaborate
want to make
on
sure the lesson was transferred.
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's stuck, but there's certainly a difference in when we talk about our our evolution, if you will, is how I would term it. You don't from the different evolutions and the progress of our race, if you will. And so you may have started out with two parents, or ancestors that were completely and authentically and genetically pure African. And then in the subsequent iterations, you had a grandmother, paternal and a maternal structure, and then all those come together, and so then you have this
Yeah.
amalgam, if
Can
you
I just
will.
kind of interrupt because it's kind of you're
Yep.
kind of going along. I see you dancing around the periphery of it. This is a very
Yeah.
important lesson. I want everyone to understand these
Hmm.
DNA ancestry tests are, from my perspective, 90 to 95% a scam.
Mm.
Here's why.
Hmm.
These DNA ancestry tests are two tests. One is called the maternal lineage, that's the mitochondrial DNA. The other
Hmm.
one is called the paternal lineage, the Y chromosome DNA. Your mother can transfer the mitochondria to her daughters and her sons, but only the daughters will transfer it on to the next generation. The same thing with the Y chromosome. The man can transfer his Y chromosome DNA to his daughters and his sons, but only the sons will pass it on to further lineage. So, therefore, if we're looking at these ancestry tests, the best that they could do, if they were accurate, and they're not proven, never been proven to be accurate, is give you your mother's 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 mother.
Mm.
Whereas on the paternal side can give you your father's father's father's
Mm.
father's father and be disrupted if a rapist from Europe invaded your family lineage. So
Yes.
here's what they will say, well, according to this, we see you have a 90% chance of being from certain region, 10% from another region,
Hmm.
5% from another region, whatever. But here's the reality. You had two parents, both of whom their genes contributed to making you. They had each two parents, so four grandparents contributed to making you. The genetic lineage contributed to making you. Going forward, you had 16 great grandparents and so on. By the time we go back 21 generations to Africa, we have 1,048,000 gene pool contributors to making us, of which,
Mm.
according to my calculations, 7% of them deviated to Europe at a certain point.
Hmm.
So therefore, if someone would say, well, how can you claim this village? How can with 1,048,000 minus 7%, I claim them all,
Oh,
Whoa.
especially the West and Central African region. Your thoughts,
yeah.
brothers?
Yes. I
Good to
concur.
agree. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
You know, I'll sum it all up by saying I claim who claims me. When I went home, the village, they welcomed me, they claimed me, they showed me love. And every time I go back, so what happens is in the naming ceremony, they explain to you that now your obligation is to not only represent the village wherever you go, but also to contribute to the well-being of the village. So we have a responsibility. So it's not just a name that you just run around and say, I got an African name. No, you belong to a family
That's
and
right.
you have a responsibility and an obligation just as much to your African family as you do to your immediate family. So,
That's
and I
right.
embrace that. I embrace it.
Okay.
I love it, wholeheartedly. And you can't, listen, you can't dissuade me. You say what you want, and whatever you say, it's not going to matter one iota.
Another point we had talked about, Brother
Mm.
Kwame Reg, I'll have you
Mhm.
respond. Another point we had talked about was the legacy. A lot of Africans born in the diaspora, domiciled in America, are claiming a 1619 slave legacy as a point of origin. They even have the 1619 project. Number one, African people were here in what is currently United States, because in 1619 it wasn't United States. We were here in Florida. I think it was 80 years, 85 years before that. So 1619 is not our origin in this country. And it's the second time, why claim a 400, 450, or less than 500-year legacy when, as Africans, claiming the whole of the West Africa, the kingdoms, the Sahel, the claiming the Nile Valley, we can claim a legacy documented 10,000 years. Your response?
No, I absolutely concur. I think Dr. David Imhotep wrote a book documenting the Africans that were here.
That's
Um,
right.
you,
The
And
first Americans were Africans was
yeah,
the name of his book.
right,
I had the privilege of organizing his references when
yeah.
he reissued the book.
Oh wow, wow, he's a brilliant mind. And also Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. But I think this was one of the reasons why Carter G. Woodson created Black History Month to show that our history didn't just start with slavery, that we had a history prior to slavery. So I think
Absolutely.
we need to reconnect with that history right there.
All right. I'm just passing the
Well,
baton back and forth as we go to wrap
Mhm.
up. Did you want to add to that as also, Nana Kwame?
yeah, what comes to mind to me. I spoke at a Kwanzaa celebration a couple of years ago, and I reminded the people of Walter Rodney's work. The underdevelopment of Africa and how that occurred. And basically, it says if you skim off the cream of the crop of any group or any race or any people, if you just take those that are talented and leave behind those who you deem as being unworthy or unfit, then if you do that for centuries, you will handicap or cripple any people. So what happened to us in the Ma'afa, uh, in the fact that we're able to endure. But what I want to leave or say to people is that what I said to the people, I said we allow our children to say what they cannot do. I said, but that's because they don't know who they are. I said when you go to Africa and you stand on the shore of the Atlantic Ocean. Now I live in New Jersey, so I've actually had the been able to stand on both sides of that Atlantic Ocean, and then a 10-hour flight to cross over to Africa to stand on the other shore. And I stood there and I realized how powerful and how strong those survivors of the Ma'afa had to be in order for me to exist. So it's not a weakness to say that I would have resisted, they would have had to kill me. If they had killed your ancestors, you wouldn't exist, you wouldn't be here. We are actually literally the best of the best, the strongest of the strong. It's our ancestors that survived and they endured, and that's what allows us to exist today. So there's no African child that should question their ability or should feel uncertain or not confident about their ability to achieve. We are literally the strongest DNA possible is coursing through your veins. And I think if our children knew and understood that they'd be so much more successful and so much more filled with pride and consciousness if we taught them who they are.
That's right. And that leads us into the next point,
Hmm.
reconnecting the bridge. This is
Hmm.
reparations. Quick thoughts
Indeed.
from either or both of you. A couple more talking points I want to get to.
Hmm.
We are pressing the clock.
Yes, we are. So I'll just say really quickly that I encourage everyone to Sankofa, whether you go to Ghana or any of the other 51 African nations that exist, find your way home, find a way to contribute, find a way to establish a relationship. And I'll just say, on WhatsApp, I'm in constant communication with brothers that are in Ghana, and we engage in commerce and the school. I support the school. So we need to build those bridges and offer our talents and our abilities and our expertise and know-how that can be leveraged for the benefit of our people.
Very
Mm-hmm.
well said. Yeah, I too encourage our brothers and sisters to go back home, whether it be to Ghana or to Kenya, Zambia, to any other African country. Um, I can now say from visiting the continent that I have a better orientation on have a different perspective or a worldview on about Africa. There's a difference when you learn about Africa through books or through lectures, but to actually go visit the continent and see the beauty and grandeur of it is just an incredible experience. And so one of the things when I told people that I was going to Africa, they were like, well, why Africa? They still stuck in those stereotypical things about Africa. But seeing is believing. But I tell people, like for Ghana, for instance, I told my coworkers, I said, Ghana has a space agency. I said, what? Ghana has a space agency? They said,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they didn't even know that. So Ghana's on the verge of launching its first rocket. Ghana just announced that upgraded. They got a 5G network now. So, but on that point, I'm going to leave off on this right here. I
Hmm.
encourage everyone. There's a book I want everyone to get. It's by Shankanta Diop, and it's called Black Africa: The Economic and Cultural Basis for a Federal State. In there, he outlines a plan for how Africa can save itself
Hmm.
by taking control over the certain industries regarding the natural resources. So he says Africa has enough natural resources in which they should form industries around those natural resources, and those industries can help save Africa. So in that book, just right quick, he identifies a number of like energy sources. Like he says, talks about thermonuclear energy, wind energy, thermal energy, and of the seas, tidal energy, global heat, and volcanic thermal energy and geothermal energy. So he talks about creating industries and utilizing these industries to save the planet.
That's right.
Mhm.
Um, Cultural basis for a federated state. The book Black Africa is undeniably one of my
It's
absolute favorites. I
it's
usually keep it within arm length when I'm on the air broadcasting, but I'm not going to reach to the bookshelf.
right.
Real
Yeah, yeah,
quickly, we
yeah.
see we get a 30-second response
Yes, sir.
to the idea Ghana citizenship for U.S. immigrants.
Oh, yes. One of my brothers, Famusa Gibson, just received his citizenship, and so brother Nana Kwame and I were very proud of him. So that's something that I will be seeking, is a dual
Hmm.
citizenship. Yes.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Brother Kwame, Nana Kwame, business development and investment opportunities abound for Africans from the diaspora in Ghana and other African countries?
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. So it's a nation, a country that is bursting at the seams, and opportunity abounds. Infrastructure is being built out, capacity is being built out, businesses are taking root, and there's opportunity there. But I would say don't go and be exploitative. Go and be beneficial. Find a way to plug in and be helpful. There's nothing wrong with profiting from doing good business.
Hmm.
There's no crime in that. So if you have a business or you have an expertise, you have a knowledge that can benefit the brothers and sisters on the continent, then by all means, leverage that and find a way to do good and be good. One last note I just want to say, and this is just something I came across on is being broadcast on HBO Max. It may be available somewhere else. It's a series called Coming from America,
Hmm.
and it's an incredible series that gives you a real look at what it is to be an expatriate and to commit to that process. There's some beautiful people that are featured in the series. It tugs at the heart, and I loved every minute of it because it was so incredible to be able to visualize, what they were going through and understand what they were going through, and to be able to
Hmm.
say, I've been there. I know exactly where they are because I was
Yeah.
there. And so that was an incredible experience. But it's called Coming from America, and it chronicles the journey of some families becoming
Hmm.
expatriates from a real perspective. It shows the hardships, the ups and the downs, the
That's
highs and
right.
the lows, pro and con. So it's a
Hmm.
balanced storytelling, but I was rooting for everybody, man, because I love them. I
Yeah.
love them all. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and for those of us who don't have HBO Max, there's another film that's been out for some time. It really gets to the heart and the core of exactly what you're describing, called Blacks Without Borders,
Oh
Living
yeah,
the
yeah.
American Dream in South Africa. An
I
awesome
have that
film.
DVD. I have the DVD. That's an
Yeah.
incredible piece of work as well. Absolutely.
Well,
So this
one of our
information.
favorites.
Hmm.
And as we go to conclude, to have both of you comment on this point, how we can, should, and would be inspired to contribute to building sustainable development infrastructure for our motherland.
S- Good.
and not necessarily have to rely on the Chinese to pick up the heavy load.
Yeah. Say that again.
Contribute to building sustainable development infrastructure for the motherland.
You saying how to?
Why we should, what would drive us, motivate us to want to contribute to. We've been away for
Well,
400 years, 500
yeah.
years. We've
Well,
learned a lot.
I'll
What can we
I,
contribute?
the way that I would characterize it is that it's essentially, if you listen to any of our great historians or philosophers, is essentially a matter of survival. Bottom line is, the world can't survive without the African continent, without the resources to be found on the African continent. And every other nation, every other country in the world needs those resources, which is why they exploit them. This is why the Chinese are there in great number to exploit the resources, the mines, the mining of the minerals, the cobalts, the titaniums, the magnesium, manganese, and all the other things that are needed to sustain human life. So, if we don't embrace the African continent, if we don't embrace those resources and develop those resources and leverage them to our benefit, then guess what? Other people will survive and we won't. It's just that
Mm.
simple. So, like I said, I mentioned earlier, is that people are dismayed about what they see taking place politically a lot. And I say that's because you haven't studied your history. There is no so called great civilization that has withstood the test of time. They've all perished. I don't care how great they were, whether it was the Roman civilization, the Greeks, the Egyptian civilization. Every civilization is marked by a rise, a golden era, or a zenith. Then you have a plateau, and then you see a decline. What we're
Mm-hmm.
witnessing is the decline of Western civilization. It's that simple. And one of the key symptoms or hallmarks of the decline of a civilization is when you see a breakdown in the system of law and order or morality. The American system is bankrupt
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to law and order and morality. And so it comes as no surprise. History will tell you that. You go back and study
Well,
any great civilization, and your answers can be found there. So I think that the next uh, our salvation, I'll just say it's just that simple. Our
That's
salvation
simple.
lies on
Yes.
the African continent.
that's
And,
right.
and,
And
and to
not
that,
only do we, just real to touch on that point,
Mhm.
not only do you see the rise and decline, the evolution of civilizations, as Carol Quigley put it in his book, but it's also, we have to acknowledge a replacement, a
mention
new
the name of the
apex
book. Yeah.
civilization. That book by Carol Quigley called The Evolution of Civilizations, one of my favorites, and I refer to it as much as I can so we can see these cycles. But the birth of a new apex civilization accompanies this decline of the previous apex civilization. We can see that happening right now in real time.
And I concur that it is based on survival, and two, that Africa is our ancestral homeland. I think we do have the talents and the resources to go back home and to help out our ancestral home. And for me, Africa gives you a clean slate. It is a huge
Mm-hmm.
continent. It is said that you can fit the United States in Africa at least 5 times. And you see, like you mentioned, you see every other ethnic group in Africa. And why do you see them over in Africa? Because they want what they want to be able to utilize the natural resources so that their people can survive. So we need to definitely lend our talents, our resources, and our knowledge in sustaining ourselves. So we definitely have the expertise to be able to do that. So and
Ashe.
and the thing I like about Ghana is that Ghana welcomes you with open arms.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no animosity and anything like that. They welcome you to come back home and to lend your talents and stuff like that. And I just want to end on this one point. When I was at the STEM Novation, I mentioned a brother from Ghana. He was a young tech. His name is Idris Sandu, right? He was born in Ghana, and now he lives in California. So one of the things he did was he went back to Ghana because he wanted help with the digital divide by working with the youth. He recently purchased 9 acres of land so he can build a tech center. And Idris Sandu helped build part of the navigational system for Uber, and he built the first app that connected. technology with retail for the late Nipsey Hussle
Mm-hmm.
at his store. Yeah, so that and then that's Idris Sandu right there. So you have and so with me, the way I can lend my expertise and knowledge is based on what I know. I want to teach what I know, which is technology as well as some other stuff that I'm good at. So
Awesome,
thank you.
awesome, awesome. If somebody in our listening audience wants to be able to contact you, do either of you have a web page or other mechanism or means that you have for outreaching to listeners that want to go to the next stage? If nothing
Uh,
else, your email address?
Email address, yeah. So my email address is Delaware DELAWARE 2018 RS at gmail.com.
Okay. Nana Kwame?
my email address is simply uh, my European name, Craig.Stevens 609.
Your taxpayer name.
Yes, yes, yes. Craig.Stevens 609 at gmail.com.
Awesome, awesome. I want to thank you both for reserving this time.
Oh,
We took a
thank
little
you.
more time than what we had
Man,
predicted, but
yeah,
obviously we could have taken 3 times as much time because every
Yes.
topic, everything we put on this long list of talking points was extremely exciting.
Mm.
Let's just get a 10-second, 15-second closeout statement as we go to wrap up today's broadcast.
yes. Thank you again, Baba Keidi, for allowing us to come on and to share our experiences to you as well as to your listening audience. And I just encourage people to continue to learn and make every effort to visit your ancestral homeland of Africa.
Mm-hmm. I say.
Brother, I just
Not a
want to
Kwame?
extend my gratitude as well for allowing us to access your platform. And so I feel about you the way that I feel about all the brothers that I encounter on the continent. I love
Mm-hmm.
you. I just, we just met, and your spirit and your generosity, your intellect, those are all things that I can understand and appreciate. So I wish you peace and blessings and longevity. We need
I
you.
say.
We need you.
I say.
Yeah.
I
Yes, sir.
receive your beautiful, kind words in the spirit that you share them. Ubuntu is the word we
Mhm,
love to use.
mhm,
Ubuntu means I am because we are. And brothers,
yes.
we have a lot of work to do together. You sowed some seeds today. You in our conversation we had
Mhm.
setting up this program. You sowed some seeds that absolutely complement everything I am committed to. I have a wonderful spectrum of contacts across Ghana, West Africa. East Africa has been much of my focus, and I'm going to introduce you, brothers, to why I'm so passionate about East Africa as well. We got a lot of work ahead of us,
Yes.
Yes, we do.
I say.
Yes, we do.
On that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and just talk to our listening audience. Greetings. Thanks so much, brothers. You brought it brilliantly today. Before
Did
I
I
leave, I'm
say?
going to let everyone know that December 1st, we're going to launch an initiative, and I want everyone to know this initiative. The more I'm preparing for launching this initiative, the more exciting I get. Real quickly, I'm going to describe it. It is a 56-day program for rejuvenating, revitalizing stem cell proliferation and activation in our bodies. I could go on to, in fact, I'll be joining tomorrow on Tech and Future Talk. We're going to be talking once again about stem cells, probably about the 6th program I've done on this. And I just laid out a curriculum, a 56-day curriculum, stem cell rejuvenation course with Coach Keidi begins December 1st. Program encompasses a 56-day guided regimen, includes 3 textbooks, Living Superfood Life, Living Superfood Longevity, and Living Superfood Recipes, Volume 2. You will learn key principles of regenerative biology, and I promise you, it will be at a doctoral level, elite university level. I could take this course I'm going to be teaching you. I could take this into Harvard, Yale, and everybody would say, wow, you say you're a reggae musician? Well, I'm a molecular scientist as well. We're going to detoxify the body and the environment during our course. There'll be a focused approach on epigenetic processes and functional medicine, dietary guidelines for optimizing stem cell proliferation, natural means of activating two types of stem cells, bone marrow derived mesenchymal stem cells, as well as adipose tissue derived stem cells, access to a proprietary formula, a smoothie to take daily that rejuvenates on the cellular level and activates stem cell proliferation, supplementation that builds natural holistic stem cell development, guided 3-day water fast jumpstart, as well as includes a weekly Zoom webinar and continuous peer-to-peer support via WhatsApp, and also includes a free 1/2 hour one-on-one consultation with Coach Keidi on your body, your payment moving forward. Single payment, it's only $300 or $299.99. Compare that to stem cell therapies from allopathic medicine that range from $2,500 to $2.1 million for stem cell therapy. We're going to learn that the body is designed to do this naturally. So I'm going to just let you know this is available. We're having people now signing up and joining it. Don't be the one to get left out. This is the real fountain of youth, and I will prove it to you beyond any question. You look at the before and after picture of me during this 26-day program, and you will see, yeah, this is the real deal. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you all for tuning in today. Our guests were undeniably spectacular. These two brothers have endeared themselves to me for life, just as you do. We are in this for life. To each and every one of you, I want to thank you for tuning in to your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. So on that note, I think I've gotten through about everything needs to be done for today's broadcast. Just let me real quickly close this out with some music, bumping from my music box. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you on LIB Radio, LIB TV on livinginblack.com. And the music bumps and we pump and we are out of here for today. My two guests, the Kwames, were absolutely awesome. Peace, y'all.